Hello, this is Shane Gassaway, and this is a video about the epistemology in Plato referring to the theory of recollection. I'm actually going to start with a paradox, and this is a paradox that arises in Plato's dialogue, the Meno. There's a young man named Meno who's challenging Socrates to tell him what is virtue. And Socrates counters that he doesn't know, and he tries to get Meno to maybe volunteer some answers, but none of Meno's answers do any good. And so eventually Meno gets upset, and he says, well, how could anybody learn anything? And he sort of volunteers this paradox where if you knew something, if you knew X, you would never learn it because there would be no point. You'll already know it. There's no going out and trying to find out what you already know. So if you know something, you don't learn it. But then what if you're ignorant of X? What if you don't know X? Well, in that case, it looks like you're still at a non-starting position, because how would you know X when you saw it if you don't know it, right? It's like impossible. So you wouldn't recognize what you don't know because you don't know it yet. And so you could go around trying to learn X, but it could be staring you in the face, and you wouldn't be able to recognize that. You wouldn't be able to do anything about it, and so you still get no learning. So two possibilities: either you know or you don't know. And in both cases, it looks like there's no learning possible. And so there's this paradox, and this is actually a pretty serious problem, that you want to get over. So in this dialogue, Socrates attacks the problem like this, or I guess he doesn't really attack the problem so much as he finds a way around it. And what he says is, what if it isn't what if our premise is wrong? What if it isn't this sort of black and white, either you don't know or you do know, and you go from absolutely no knowledge to complete knowledge in one step? What if that's not the way things actually work? And so we tell this different story where, in fact, you already know, or at least you're, in a sense, already in possession of the knowledge that you're looking for. You do know X, it's just that you forgot. Or to be more accurate, in Socrates' account, your soul knows X. Your soul knew X before it inhabited your body. So there's this part of the theory of recollection is a theory of transmigration of souls from body to body, and immortality of the soul. So the soul itself has this knowledge, but as soon as you're born, you pass through this forgetfulness, and so the forgetfulness causes you to not know, or not remember, not recollect things. But then later in the course of living your life, your encounters with the world prompt you to recollect the things that are actually in your soul to be known. And so the example that Socrates gives is actually a geometric one. He finds somebody who is completely ignorant and has never had an education, and starts talking to him about math. So this person has never done geometry before, but he knows what a square is. And so Socrates gets him to look at the square and try to figure out how to double the area of the square by changing the side, the length of the side. So you can imagine a square that's got a 2-foot side, so 2 feet by 2 feet. How big do you need to extend the side so that you have a square that is 8 feet in area, right? So not 8 feet by 8 feet, but the area of it is twice the area of the square that it's 2 feet by 2 feet. The ignorant person, it's Meno's slave, so they call him the slave boy. This uneducated slave says, well, probably you're going to double the side, so the side will be 4, and it'll be 4 by 4, right? Which turns out to be an area of 16, because the area of a square is side times side. And so the first guess, the slave thinks that he knows the answer, or he thinks that he can figure it out, but he can't. So the first thing that he learns is that he doesn't know, which is important. And so Socrates shows him by drawing the squares in the sand. He shows them that he hasn't doubled the square; he's quadrupled the area of the square by doubling the side. And so the next guess is maybe it's the 3 foot by 3 foot square, but of course that turns out to be 9 feet instead of 8 feet. And so the answer that he seeks, and Socrates only questions him like, "Oh, is this right? Is this right? Is this what you mean?" And tries to get the slave to actually be the only one talking, so that Socrates isn't teaching him anything. It's just trying to get him to recollect. Well, Socrates ends up having to draw the diagonal, which is actually how you get the double of a square in area. The double of the area of the square has a side that is the diagonal of the original square. You can look that up, or ask me in class. I don't. If I were to draw it, you would understand. But Socrates draws the diagonal and then makes the square on the diagonal and says, "How big is it?" And the slave says, "Oh, well, that's exactly twice the area of the original square, and so that's the one that we want." So he doesn't go. He doesn't experience the problem that Meno had explained. He was in ignorance, didn't know it. But he's shown that what he thought was the case was not the case. And then when he encounters the truth, he's able to recognize that that's the truth. So he doesn't go from ignorance, where he can't even recognize the truth, to knowledge, where why would he even bother with it? It's more ignorance and not realizing that he might bother with it because he doesn't even realize he's ignorant, to recognizing the truth when it stares him in the face. And so this is how Socrates gets around the paradox, the Meno's paradox. And so the theory of recollection basically says that the mind itself carries around with it, or the soul, the mind carries around with it these answers, or this ability to bear witness to the truth in the world. And possibly that is because maybe the mind's immortal. But that is one other feature of Plato's or Socrates' epistemology that's worth talking about. Thank you.